Have you ever held a newborn baby? A creature that cannot yet focus their eyes on anything more than a few inches away, that cannot lift their own head, that has been alive for perhaps a matter of hours. And noticed that even in that blurred, overwhelmed first moments of the world state, their gaze drifts toward your face and settles there with a quality of attention that is different from anything else in the room. A pulling, seeking, almost gravitational quality of attention. As if your face is not just one object among many, but is something categorically different. Something that the baby's brand new brain has already decided is the most important thing in the environment, more important than the light, more important than the ceiling, more important than any of the countless other visual events happening in every direction. And have you ever wondered, in that moment, not just why the baby is looking at you, but what it means that this is the very first preference a human brain forms, before preference for food, before preference for warmth, before preference for anything else that common sense might suggest a newborn would care about most? There is this: the face, the human face specifically, sought and held and returned to with a consistency that is not learned and not chosen and not even conscious, but is simply, irresistibly, biologically there from the very first minutes of the very first day of a human life. That preference, the baby's profound, specific, apparently inexhaustible fascination with faces, is one of the most studied phenomena in all of developmental science, and yet, the deeper you go into the research, the stranger and more wondrous the story becomes, because what you find when you look carefully at why babies love faces so much is not a simple answer about survival or social bonding, though those things are present. What you find is a window into something at the very heart of what it means to be human, a glimpse of the ancient and extraordinary machinery that our species evolved to navigate the most complex and the most important domain any human mind ever encounters, which is not the physical world of objects and distances and forces, but the social world of other minds, other intentions, other selves, a world that is infinitely more complex and infinitely more consequential than anything physics or chemistry or mathematics has ever had to describe. Begin with the biology, because the biology alone is astonishing. The human brain is the only brain in the known animal kingdom that has an entire dedicated cortical region whose sole and exclusive purpose is the processing of faces. A region called the fusiform face area located in the temporal lobe, which activates specifically and powerfully in response to faces and which, when damaged, produces a condition called prosopagnosia or face blindness, in which a person can see perfectly well, can recognize objects and scenes and colors without difficulty, but cannot recognize faces, cannot distinguish one person's face from another's, cannot look at a photograph of a family member they have known for decades and know who it is. And this region, this evolutionarily ancient, neurologically dedicated, metabolically expensive piece of social machinery, is active and responsive in newborns, present and working from the very first days of life, which tells you with absolute clarity that the human brain did not evolve to process faces as a side effect of general visual processing. It did not develop face expertise through experience and learning alone. It came into the world pre-equipped with a specialized face processing system whose construction was encoded in the genome itself, because evolution decided, long before our species could articulate why, that the ability to read a face was so critical, so foundational, so worth the metabolic cost of an entire dedicated brain region that it could not be left to chance or to learning. It had to be guaranteed. And the reason evolution made that decision becomes clear when you consider what a face actually is and what a face actually does, because a face is not just a visual object. It is a dynamic, real-time broadcast of the most important information that any social creature can receive. It tells you who this person is, and whether you have met them before. It tells you what they are feeling and whether those feelings are directed at you. It tells you whether they are safe or threatening, interested or indifferent, honest or deceiving, approachable or closed. It tells you, in the fraction of a second it takes to look at it, more about the inner state of another human being than any other signal in the entire sensory environment. And for a creature like a human baby, who is completely helpless and whose survival depends entirely on the continuous investment and attentiveness of other human beings, the ability to read that signal with speed and precision and without error is not a nice-to-have feature of the social brain. It is the most important survival skill that exists. Now, here is something that takes the story in a direction most people never expect. The preference for faces that babies are born with is not, strictly speaking, a preference for faces as adults know them. It is a preference for a particular spatial configuration, a specific arrangement of features in a specific relationship to each other. And what has fascinated researchers is how minimal and how schematic that initial preference is, because very young babies will orient toward and engage with something as simple as a rough oval shape with 2 dots in the upper half and 1 dot in the lower half, a configuration that contains essentially no detail, no photorealistic rendering, no color, no movement, nothing that an adult would look at and immediately think, face. And yet the baby's brain recognizes it as something face-like and responds to it with the same basic orientation reflex that it produces in response to a real human face, which tells you that what the newborn brain is detecting is not faces in the rich, complex, detail-laden way that older brains perceive them. It is detecting the abstract signature of a face, the top-heavy configuration of features that all faces share, and that nothing else in the natural environment reliably produces, and this abstract detection is the seed from which the entire extraordinary edifice of human face expertise will eventually grow. Researchers Mark Johnson and John Morton proposed a model they called ConSpec and ConLearn to explain this two-stage process. ConSpec is the innate subcortical mechanism present at birth that produces the basic orientation toward face-like configurations, running without cortical involvement, without learning, without experience, a hardwired preference for the right shape in the right arrangement. And ConLearn is the experience-driven system that builds on that initial preference, that begins from birth to process and store and specialize around the specific faces the baby encounters, that transforms the generic face preference into the rich, nuanced, individually specific face expertise that adults possess. And understanding these two systems together explains how a baby can be born preferring faces without having ever seen one, and can become, over the first months and years of life, one of the most sophisticated face recognition systems on the planet. Here is the first twist that genuinely stops people. Babies are not just better than adults at some aspects of face processing in the early months of life. They are, in a very specific and measurable sense, more capable of face recognition than adults across a broader range of faces, and the reason reveals something both beautiful and slightly melancholy about the cost of expertise. Around 6 months of age, a baby can distinguish between individual faces across species, between individual monkey faces, for example, or between individual sheep faces, with an accuracy that adult humans cannot match, because adult human brains, having been saturated with human face experience from birth, have over-specialized the face processing system toward human faces and have lost the broader spectrum face sensitivity that babies possess before the specialization occurs, a phenomenon researchers call perceptual narrowing, or the other race effect in its most commonly studied form, where the face processing system fine-tunes itself to the specific type of faces most frequently encountered and gradually loses sensitivity to faces outside that category. This means that the baby staring at your face is doing so with a visual system that is in some ways more open and more capable than the one you are using to look back at them. A system that has not yet narrowed its sensitivity to a particular subset of human faces, that is still processing with the full, unspecialized breadth of its face-detecting capacity. And something is genuinely lost when that system narrows, when expertise comes at the price of the wider sensitivity that preceded it, and this loss happens quietly and inevitably across the first year of life, unseen and unmourned but real, one of the small and invisible costs of becoming a person in a specific time and place and community, rather than a generic human being with access to the full spectrum of what human perception could be. Here is the second twist, and this one goes somewhere that no amount of neuroscience or perceptual research can entirely account for, somewhere that sits at the intersection of science and something older. Researchers studying infant attention to faces have found that what holds a baby's gaze most powerfully and most persistently is not a still face, not a photographically perfect face, not even a particularly beautiful face by adult aesthetic standards. What holds it most completely is a face that is looking back, a face that has registered the baby's gaze and is returning it, a face that is responding to the baby's attention with attention of its own, a face in which the baby can see themselves being seen. And this finding, which sounds deceptively simple, is actually one of the most profound discoveries in all of developmental science, because what it tells you is that the baby's fascination with faces is not merely visual, not merely about gathering information from a rich sensory source. It is fundamentally about connection, about the experience of being in relationship with another conscious being, about the specific and irreplaceable feeling of looking at something that looks back, of existing in the awareness of another person, of being present to someone who is present to you. And this experience, the experience of mutual recognition, of being truly seen, is something that the human nervous system appears to need at the most basic biological level, something that the brain was built to seek and built to register, and built to be profoundly affected by from the very first minutes of the very first day of life. The still face experiment, that famous and heartbreaking research paradigm developed by Ed Tronick at Harvard, demonstrated with devastating clarity what happens to a baby when a responding face suddenly goes still, when the caregiver who had been present and engaged and expressive simply stops responding, holds their face motionless and neutral, withdraws the signal of recognition, and within seconds, the baby begins to show distress, tries to re-engage the face, smiles, and reaches and vocalizes with increasing urgency. And when those efforts fail, withdraws, looks away, slumps, shows every behavioral signature of a nervous system that has just lost something it needed at a level far below the reach of conscious thought. The face the baby loves is not a visual experience, it is a relational one, not an object of perception, but a subject of encounter, not something to be observed, but someone to be known. What all of this builds toward, when you hold all of it together, the dedicated neural hardware, the innate configuration preference, the two-stage development of face expertise, the perceptual openness that precedes specialization, the primacy of the responding face, is a picture of the human baby as a being who arrives in the world not as a blank slate waiting to be written on, not as a generic learning machine ready to acquire whatever the environment provides, but as a profoundly social creature whose entire cognitive architecture is oriented from birth toward other people, whose most sophisticated and most hardwired systems are dedicated not to processing the physical world, but to reading the social one, whose first and deepest and most irreplaceable interest is not in objects or in space or in causality or in any of the thousand things that the physical environment offers, but in faces, specifically in the faces of the people who are present and responding and there. the faces that look back, the faces that carry in their muscles and their eyes and the slight variations of their expressions, the entire living library of what another human being is feeling and intending and offering, and the baby who gazes at your face with that particular quality of attention that you have always noticed without quite being able to name, is doing the most fundamentally human thing that exists, which is to reach toward another consciousness, to seek the experience of being met, to look into the face of another person and find there a reflection not of their own features, but of their own existence, a confirmation that they are here and they are real and they matter to someone, and that the world into which they have so recently arrived is not empty of other minds, but full of them, not silent but speaking, not indifferent but looking back. And that discovery, made without words, made before memory, made in the very first hours of a human life, is the beginning of everything that will ever matter to this person. The first chapter of the longest and most important story a human being ever lives, which is the story of being in the world with other people and finding over and over again that the face looking back at you is the thing that makes the world feel real. Subscribe for more Mind Secrets.